Greetings and salutations, my name is OJ as always, and welcome back to another part of the DBD-a-thon, a series of videos where I go over every single killer in Dead by Daylight, from Trapper all the way up to Springtrap. In these videos I'll be going over their lore, aka reading their in-game bios, because I'm not really a lore guy. If you're looking for lore I'd look elsewhere. Their gameplay, you know what I mean. Cosmetics, design, etc., as well as my general opinions and thoughts on the specific killers in question. And today's object of obsession, that's a perk, I think that's the name of a perk, anyways, is Anna, also known as the Huntress. Now, just like every other video I've done in this series thus far, I think I might not have done it with the first one, that being on Trapper, but hey ho, I'm going to begin by reading Huntress's in-game bio, also known as the equivalent for the lore. And again, I said just a second ago, if you're looking for lore, I'd look elsewhere. But with that said, let us commence forth on her lore. As soon as Anna was able to walk, her mother started teaching her how to survive a harsh, solitary life in the northern woods. Living in such an extremely remote and dangerous area required skill and resilience. When sunlight became too dim for productive activities, they would take refuge in their house, a sturdy old cabin constructed to resist the toughest winters. Close to the hearth's warmth, Anna would rest in her mother's arms, surrounded by the few wooden toys and masks she had crafted for her. Drifting off to sleep with stories and lullabies, she dreamt happy dreams, ignorant of the events that would soon change everything. Anna and her mother were stalking a great elk through the woods. They knew it was dangerous prey, but it had been a particularly difficult winter and they were almost out of food. The spectre of starvation frightened them more than any forest creature. Without warning, the elk reared, bellowed, and charged at Anna. She was paralyzed with fear as the whole world seemed to shake under the immense beast's pounding hooves. The elk was close enough for Anna to see the murderous fury in its eyes when her mother threw herself in its path, axe in hand. A blood-curdling scream escaped from her lips as the elk impaled her upon its antlers and hoisted her into the air. With all of her strength, she brought her axe down on its head again and again while it tried to shake her loose. With a sickening crack, the antlers snapped and Anna's mother was free. The beast collapsed. Anna was too small to move her mother's broken body, so she sat with her in the clearing where she had fallen. To distract her from the dying elk's cries, Anna's mother held her and hummed her favourite lullaby. They stayed like that, the Huntress and the elk getting quieter and colder until Anna was alone in the silent forest. Eventually, she stood up and started the long walk back home. Still a child, she knew just enough about life in the frozen forest to survive. She followed her instincts and became one with the wild. She got older and stronger and practiced her hunt. As she grew into a dangerous predator, her humanity became a half-remembered dream. She widened her territory and lived off of her hunts. She worked her way up through the squirrels, hares, minks, foxes. Eventually she grew tired of them and hunted more dangerous animals like wolves and bears. When unsuspecting travellers came through her woods, she discovered her new favourite prey: humans. Unlucky souls who strayed into her territory were slaughtered like any other animal. She liked to collect their tools and colourful garments, and especially toys when they were little ones, but she could never bring herself to kill the little girls. Girls who she would take back to her house deep in the woods. They were precious, and looking at them woke something deep in her heart. She craved the closeness of a loved one, a child of her own. Among the pillaged wooden toys, dolls, and storybooks she couldn't read, the girls would be tied by the neck with a rough and chafing rope fastened firmly to the wall. She couldn't let them wander off, or they would surely die outside. Every time, the girls would waste away and die of cold or starvation or sickness. Every time, it plunged Anna deeper into the pain and sorrow and madness. She was compelled to try again, and started raiding the nearest villages to slaughter families and kidnap their daughters. She wore one of the animal masks her mother crafted for her so many years earlier to try and calm the frightened children. Villagers spread the legend of a half-beast lurking in the Red Forest, the Huntress, who killed men and ate little girls. War eventually came to the forest. German soldiers began to pass through on the march to attack the collapsing Russian Empire. During these dark times, there were no more travellers. The villagers had abandoned their homes, and no more little ones were to be found. Only soldiers. Many of them were found with violent axe wounds. Whole groups disappeared mysteriously. Once the war was over, the rumour of the Huntress disappeared with it, engulfed by the Red Forest. Now, as you'll notice, that was actually a far longer piece of lore than any of the characters I've discussed so far. Pardon me. Pardon me? Excuse me? I don't know, I had to clear my throat. Yeah, this is a way longer piece of lore compared to anyone I've talked about thus far, and it's probably only going to get worse for me from here, because some of these are whole-ass book-level paragraphs, like multi-page English essays. If I remember, everyone jokes about the Trickster having a really long piece of lore. Can't wait for that. Going back to the Huntress, though, I quite like her in-game bio story. It adds a certain level of tragedy to her and contextualizes a lot about her design and the way she is, including her lullaby, which presumably, after her mother sung it to comfort her as a child, she then took that lullaby and used it for the little girls that she would, kidnap and such. It's a really good piece of lore, and I actually like it a lot. It explains a lot about her. It gives us context onto why she is the way she is, and almost portrays her as a tragic character that can't really do much more than what she knows. In another world, she might have lived a normal life, but being left in the woods on her own, forced to survive, has turned her into this sort of human beast. Funny enough, the references to her being like a beast, a half beast or whatever, is actually potentially true. She might actually be some form of funny enough, her legendary skin, or is it visceral skin, the were-elk, is from the looks of it, a true version of herself. That's like her true form. She is apparently a were-elk, which is, quite ironic considering an elk killed her mum and all that. But yeah, anyways, with her bio/lore, etc. explained or read, I'd like to move on to her gameplay and her power in turn. Now, unlike the last killer that we talked about, that being the Doctor, who had a surprisingly complex power for when he came out, Huntress's is not complex in any way, shape or form. It's, gameplay-wise, actually using it can be quite complex and there's a lot of tricks to it, but on paper, this is not complex. She has a hatchet. She can throw the hatchet. It does damage. There you go. That's her power. She can throw hatches. Hatches? Yeah, she can throw hatches. It helps the survivors escape, guys. So she starts the trial with 7 hunting hatches. She can charge up a throw of said hunting hatch. When she does so, she slows down slightly, and when it's thrown and it hits the survivor, assuming you're not using a specific add-on, it does an instance of damage to the survivor. It's a good power. Considering this was their first attempt at a ranged killer, it's simple, but it works. And the fact that she has obviously a limited amount, which by the way, she can refill the amount of hatches she has by searching lockers. And when you have no hatches, hatches. Why did I call it hatches again? When you have no hatchets, she can see the aura of lockers, which obviously helps you get them quicker. It's a good attempt for a first, ranged killer, and it's the baseline that every other ranged killer should be kind of, designed around, in a sense. A later killer we'll discuss, Deathslinger, takes her general idea and then obviously does something unique and different with it. The both of them are ranged killers, but they play completely differently. And as the first one, she gets a lot of props from me. And she isn't too overbearing, which obviously the idea of a ranged killer at the point that she released might have been a bit scary, because oh my god, she could kill us from range, she doesn't have to engage in chases, but no, they balance her quite well, and I like her power. It's simple, very very simple, but effective, and generally I'm not very good with it. You can see my gameplay in the background, right? Does it look like I'm good with it? I say that, but I don't think I did too badly. I think it was just the second game that I recorded where I just didn't do that well. Also, if you're wondering why I'm actually showing footage of me failing, it's because I want to be honest with you guys. I'm going to show you my successes and my failures. I got to be real with you. Don't you worry, you're going to see a lot of failures in the next video, which, if you know your Dead by Daylight killer order and you know my history with the hillbilly, it's not going to be particularly surprising. Something about chainsaws, man. I can't use them to save my life. But anyways, with Huntress's gameplay discussed and my general thoughts on it, I'd like to move on to her teachable perks. Her first teachable perk is known as Beast of Prey, with a description reading as such. Your lust for a kill is so intense that your connection with the entity is momentarily lost, making you totally unpredictable. Upon gaining the Bloodlust status effect, Beast of Prey activates, and grants the undetectable status effect for as long as Bloodlust is active. Beast of Prey also grants a 30, 40 and 50% bonus blood points for actions in the Hunter category. With flavor text reading, "Where did she go?" This perk really sucks. It's really bad, like really bad, and it really sucks that the beginning line is so cool. Like, what do you mean my lust for a kill severs my connection with the entity momentarily? That is so cool. That's such a cool line for a perk, and the perk sucks. Because here's a fun fact, right? When you gain undetectable, you lose the ability to gain bloodlust. If I remember rightly, that is how that works. So you're in the chase, and you're chasing them long enough that you get bloodlust, but then you lose bloodlust by being undetectable. So it's counteractive. The bloodlust is meant to help you end a chase because you get the little speed up. But if you have undetectable, you can't get any more bloodlust. And undetectable can help you do, like, you know, tricks and stuff like hide the red stain. That's the only good thing it's good for in a chase per se. But this perk sucks. The bonus blood points is kind of nice, but you know, blood points aren't even an issue anymore. I've thought about that for a while. Like, blood points aren't really that big an issue anymore, and they got rid of it off of barbecue and chili for a reason. Like, it just isn't an issue anymore. You get blood points galore, and it's very rare that I'm ever struggling for blood points, but that's coming from a person that, you know, like, has most of the killers at Prestige 3 and stuff. But yeah, Beast of Prey sucks. No reason to ever use it in any situation. But with that said, we'll move on to her next perk. Said next perk is Hex Huntress Lullaby, with a literal wall of text for a description that reads as such. A hex rooting its power in despair. Your hunt is an irresistible song of dread which muddles your prey's attention. Survivors failing a repair skill check instantly regress the generator by 2, 4 or 6% of its maximum possible progress, in addition to the default progression penalty. Survivors failing a healing skill check instantly regress the healing action by 2, 4 and 6% of its maximum possible progression, in addition to the default progression penalty. Each time a survivor is hooked, Huntress Lullaby grows in power and gains a token, up to a max of 5. Each token reduces the timer between skill check warning queue and the skill check appearing for both repair and healing skill checks. And from 1 to 5, it goes from 14, 28, 42, 56, and at 5 tokens completely suppresses the warning queue of a skill check. With flavor text reading, "That song, it drives me crazy." This perk is good in a single scenario, a niche scenario, and an only one, that being the impossible skill check doctor build, which I actually used in the last video. Otherwise, I just would not use this. There's other ways to regress gens that are far more effective. There's another hex perk that's better at regressing gens than this. The only reason it's good on Doctor is because he can make the skill checks appear in random places. So if they appear in a random place, are smaller because of other perks, and you can't hear the queue, yeah, it can be an issue, right? Otherwise, this perk is not really usable on anyone but Doctor, unless I'm wrong and there's actually some secret hidden build for the pig that makes it incredible. I doubt that, but still, it could be the case, and I'm sure someone will say so if that is the case. But with that said, we can move on to her final perk. That being Territorial Imperative, with a description that reads as such. Unlocks potential in your aura reading ability. Whenever you are farther than 24 meters from the basement whilst a survivor enters it, Territorial Imperative activates. The aura of that survivor is revealed to you for 4, 5 or 6 seconds, and then goes on cooldown for 45 seconds, with flavor text reading, "We're not safe anywhere." This perk sucks as well. Shocker, she's going free for bad perks. Huntress Lullaby gets a pass because it's niche and good on a single killer. Well, kind of good on a single killer. This one sucks too. 6 seconds of aura reading and I have to be away from the basement? How often are survivors entering the basement on their own free will? Like, unless this perk saw a tiny bit of increase in use when Sable came out, because she has the invocation, that's the word I was looking for. The invocation perk where she goes in the basement and, you know, makes every gen progress by 10% automatically and is stuck at a 10% increase. But yeah, otherwise, back when that perk came out and this one suddenly got a tiny bit of use, this perk is useless. There's so many better aura reading perks, like so many. You could just use, like, Nowhere to Hide, or Barbecue and Chili, or Lethal Pursuer, or, okay, maybe not Lethal Pursuer because it only activates at the very beginning of the game and doesn't activate more than once, but you get what I mean. Like, oh, Nowhere to Hide, you kick a gen and you see the auras of survivors. Shock. Or what's another one? Awakened Awareness, the Wesker perk, where you see as survivors' auras when you're carrying someone. Even that one's better than this. Like, this perk sucks, and it sucks that she has to go free on perks that aren't really good. 2 of them sucking really badly, and Huntress Lullaby being very good on Doctor and no one else. But with her very bad perks discussed, still not worse than Wraith, by the way, we move on to her design / her cosmetics. Now, Huntress's design is a very solid one. It's not one that I have any particular super strong feelings about, outside of the fact that I think a 7-foot woman is kind of hot, but that's besides the point. Huntress herself is a very tall, as I just mentioned, muscular woman in sort of, is it Slavic clothing? I think it's Slavic clothing. She has a lot of Slavic influence. I could be wrong though, and if someone says I am wrong, I will, you know, correct myself in the comments, etc. But again, tall, muscular woman wearing Slavic clothing. She definitely looks like a huntress. The bunny mask is very much iconic. It is of almost like ironic that someone this large and scary, wielding axes and hatchets and all that, is wearing a mask of a creature that otherwise most people would consider harmless and cute even. And the back of the mask being like a veil to hide her face is, you know, actually a really cool piece of design. I think her design is solid, but again, I don't really have many strong feelings about it. I'm not sure why I don't. Sometimes killer designs, you can just look at them and say, yeah, that's a good design, and that's all you have to really say. And for me, Huntress, kind of like the Hag, is in that same camp, where I can look at the design and say, yeah, that's good, and not really have much else to say about it. But with all of that yapping done, we can move on to her cosmetics, and my least favourite and favourite ones. Now, for those who need a refresher on the rules for me choosing favourites and least favourites, for least favourites, I'm not allowed to pick anything below a very rare, because if I could, I'd just say, wow, this yellow rarity recolor for the Huntress that just makes her outfit red looks like ass. No shit, Sherlock. So yeah, I've limited myself to very rares and above for least favourites, and for favourites I can pick whatever the hell I want, because sometimes there is a blue rarity skin / green rarity, they changed it, or, you know, maybe a legendary that I like the most. And speaking of my least favourite, we have her blighted skin, also known as Growth Surge. Now, as I just mentioned earlier, I don't really have any strong feelings about her original design. I think it's good, right? But this is a paid skin. I'm paying for this, right? And I don't really like it. It is too similar to her base design without doing much interesting. Like, her clothes are damn near identical to her base design, minus the, blighted pus stuff on, like, the chest and arms. Speaking of the chest and arms, there is, like, fur, which is a cool nod to the fact that people thought she was a were-elk, or, like, a beast woman of some kind, but that's not enough. The mask doesn't really look that interesting either. Like, a cool design is for her blighted skin. Like, if they were to redo it, I think they could have done something like what they did with the pig, where they actually made the mask part of her. Like, if they turned her like face, her lower face, into like a bunny's face, like a rabbit's face, and they kind of like merged the veil into the back of her neck or something, I think that could have been really, really cool. But obviously they didn't do that, and instead we have a skin that looks too similar to the base design for me to really like it in any way, shape or form. And if anything, obviously this is my least favorite, so I don't actually like it. But yeah, it's just not, it doesn't do anything for me, as always. A lot of the blighted skins don't. I've never really been too big a fan of them, but this is one of the worst ones. Now, Huntress does have a lot of competition for favourite skins. I'm quite fond of any that put her with like other masks per se, like the one where she has a bear head or the one where she has a horse face mask. However, I am a simple man, and as I alluded to earlier, I am not resistant to the attraction of a tall, muscular woman. So, my favourite skin is Beach Day, which is a collab skin, a collab with themselves. It's a skin from Dead by Daylight's April Fool's Day dating sim called Hooked on You. And it is literally Huntress in a very pretty, colourful piece of swimwear. Like, that's all it is. And you know what? It's really simple. And hell, some may get mad at me for saying that the last one wasn't too different from her base design, but this one literally just has the same mask. But to counteract that, her veil's different. Yup, owned. I just think this skin is funny. I think the idea of some tall, muscular woman running around in a swimsuit killing like poor innocent survivors is hilarious. I like the axe having like a starfishes on it and being quite colourful. And for some reason, the flowery pattern of her swimsuit, as well as her veil, really remind me of like the SpongeBob background flowers. Like, you know, like in SpongeBob, the sky has like the weird white outlines of flowers sometimes. I might be tripping. I'll see if I can pull up an image of what I'm talking about when I, you know, edit the video, right? But I don't know. I just think this skin's really funny and neat. If you wanted my actual favourite, like if I were not, you know, if you want me to rank, how do I put it? Like, this is I like the skin on its, you know, funny principle. But if you were to actually ask me, oh, what do you think quality-wise her best skin is? Yes, Were Elk. No shit. Were Elk is incredible. And I'm annoyed it keeps getting bugged with a weird terror radius issue, because then it makes me look like a sweat when I'm using it. I'm not sweat. I just really like the Were Elk. But yeah, it was Were Elk or Beach Day, but I think the funny factor of Beach Day just slightly makes it win out for me. But with all of that said, this is already, as always, the end of the video. So I hope you've enjoyed my rambles as always, and I hope you have a good evening, good afternoon, good morning, etc, etc. Like, comment, subscribe if you feel so inclined, or if you enjoy the content. And we will next be stopping on a certain someone who I alluded to earlier with my chainsaw comment. That being Bubba Sawyer, also known as the Leatherface. The Leatherface. Why do I call him? It's Leatherface.